My guest this week on the Deep Seed podcast is Jeroen Klompe. He's an amazing regenerative farmer from the Netherlands. I had the opportunity to travel to his farm and to sit down with him for this really cool conversation where we talk about his personal journey and transition to regenerative agriculture. We talk about soil health, about nutrient density. We talk about taste as well, about so much more as well. But it's such a cool conversation and I really hope you'll enjoy it as much as I did. This episode was made in partnership with Soil Capital. I'm your host, Raphael, and this is the Deep Seed podcast. Hi, Jeroen. How are you doing today?
Good. I'm happy that it is summer again. A little bit after this extremely wet period in the first part of this year. So sitting without a cold jacket on is quite comfortable at the moment.
Right, yes, it's mid-June and it's a big win for us just to not to have to wear a jacket.
Yeah.
But you were telling me that the rain has been a big issue for you this year.
As long as I'm a farmer and as long as my father can remember, and he became 80 this year, this is the most extreme year rainfall related. And I don't know the exact number at this moment, but we have passed the 600 millimeters so far already in the first 6 months. And I think on an average base we have 860 millimeters. So we are almost 3/4 of the whole rainfall this year, and then the season has to start yet.
Yeah.
So I don't know what it's going to bring, or it stays wet the whole year, or it will become extremely dry the second part.
And why is this extreme rain a problem for you?
It's a problem because we are working with nature. All our crops are outside without a rooftop above their heads. So when the soil is wet, it's for us almost impossible to work in the fields. We are farming on clay soils, sea clay soils, and the more sandy soils, the faster you can go into the fields. And we're farming on a regenerative way that we are trying to get the cover crops on the fields as long as possible. But that also has a side effect that the water holding capacity of our soils is a little bit higher. And therefore we have to wait also a little bit longer before we can enter the fields to make the seedbed preparation and go seeding.
Okay, and have you noticed differences between your soil and your fields and some neighboring ones that are not necessarily regenerative?
Particular this year, it's a little bit more challenging, but when you have, let's say, things a little bit more under control, it's manageable. But you still have to have just dry days. But the difference are at this year when the time frame is super tight. We have to wait 1 or 2 days longer. And then we are losing days at this moment. If let's say if it's sunny for 4 days and we have to wait for 2 days, then we can only work for 2 days. And that's a little bit challenging this year on the negative side of Regen Ag. But on the other hand, the fields which are in transition for more than 10 years, it's also remarkable that the longer they are in transition, the more resilient they became and that they're also drier faster. So it's depending on how many years the soils are in transition at this moment.
All right. A little bit of context. We are at your farm here. We're just outside of Rotterdam. Like I said, we are kind of mid-June. So first of all, thank you so much for taking the time and welcoming me here at your farm.
Yeah, welcome.
Could you give us a little bit of background about you and the farm?
We are located at this moment on, it's not the farm where this farm started. It's 2.5 kilometers further on the road, and that was the location where my father was born. It's still part of this farm, but in 1973, my grandfather and my father bought this farm, and I grew up on this farm 50 years ago, still now. And at this moment, we are farming a few different systems. We have a conventional part where we do everything which is forbidden in Region X, so the cost price driven conventional way of farming. Then we have almost 200 hectares which are fully regenerative now.
How many hectares? Sorry, I didn't.
200 which are in full regenerative mode at this moment. And then we have 60 hectares which is a regenerative organic part. And that's the most challenging chapter of the farm. And then this moment I'm farming, running the farm as the end responsible, but my son is in the daily operation, responsible for everything. He's managing the team. My wife is doing a lot of backup in research and development, doing a lot of administration, certification, and running a lot of projects on the farm. And my daughter is still at school, and she's giving us mental support.
Mm-hmm. And so it's quite interesting that you're doing all three. You're practicing still conventional agriculture, you're doing regenerative, and you're doing organic regenerative.
Yeah.
So how did this sort of transition start? When? And what was the defining moment when you decided that it was a good idea to do that?
There are two remarkable things I have to mention. One is to become regenerative, I think. And the other thing we can top on is why we still have a conventional part.
Absolutely.
And coming from a cost price driven farming system, it's all about yield. Yield. And the ones who have the lowest cost price, they are the winners. So lowest cost price, highest yield. That was the future for farming. So innovation was fully driven on getting the cost price as low as possible. That means bigger machinery, etc., etc. And we were working in a commoditized world. So all the arable projects were a little bit more commoditized. And we were delivering to the retail, but still it's a commoditized market. It's an anonymous product. And I had the ambition to build short supply chains, to get higher margin, to get in contact with the consumers, to add extra value to it, so we have a bigger margin, but also a story to tell, etc. Because it is, and it has always been an ambition to have a winery, because terroir, it's super important in winery. The perennial crops, so the wine trees, the processing, fermentation, bottling, marketing of the bottles, getting people on the farm to tell the story, having contact with chefs and consumers all around the world. A little bit more on a farm like us, it's not used to have, let's say, visitors. But if you are, let's say, in France or Spain or whatever, or Italy, most of the time when you're on holiday, you're also going to visit the winery if you're interested. And it was that storytelling, that vibe, that energy was also was always of an interest for me. And potatoes were a quite dominant crop on our farm, and I was figuring out, hey, the consumption of potatoes is going down every year because the French fries, the convenience market is growing, and would it be fun to have a potato on the plates that children will ask their mom and dad, can I get some more potatoes because they are so delicious? And that was the starting point to start thinking different and thinking a little bit more in terroir. And then we came to the big question, what is terroir?
What is it?
What is it? What is good soil?
Mm-hmm.
And a few steps forward, we had a holiday in Nepal. Visited a lot of beautiful things, but during that holiday we also had the possibility to visit a few farms in the south of Nepal, and we were the guest at a family, and we were able to sleep over there. And I visited the fields with the lady of the farm, and it was full of variation, diversification, all crops growing through each other. And we were digging a hole with our arms, and in 20 seconds we had a hole till our elbow. And my nails were not broken. My skin was still on my fingers. Such a beautiful soil. So I was really impressed about it. No diseases in the crops which she was growing. She was growing everything through each other year by year. And we had the privilege to have dinner with them. She was cooking, baking, let's say, the kind of pancakes in Nepal. And after dinner, with a difficult conversation in English, but with hands, and we could have a conversation. And I was showing on my phone, which is also a thing she was not used to watch it, the machinery we were using. And she didn't give any reaction. Nothing. She went back into the kitchen to get some extra food for us, etc. And then she grabbed me with my arm. And she said to me, "Too much iron. Too much iron." And that resonated with me. So coming back in the Netherlands, and I was showing the pictures of the machinery we were using on the farms, and getting back to the fields, and we thought, hey, we are farming in the Netherlands, we are one of the best farmers in the world, and we have the best soils, etc. That's how we were grown up and what we thought we were in the world. And then we went back to the fields and we saw, hey, soil compaction, because of the big amount of iron we are using, was one of our biggest problems. Okay. And if you have soil compaction, then you have problems with air in your soil. And if you have problems with air in your soil, you have problems with water in your soil. And if there is no air in your soil, there is no soil biology in your soil. And if there is no soil biology in your soil, you are consuming your carbon. So that's a negative spiral downwards. And that was for us a big aha moment that we need to change things. And that's 11, 12 years ago now. And that was the starting point, that we were fully focused on soil improvement. And that's called regenerative farming nowadays. So we are able to be Googled now. But in that time we were very lonely in the desert. So that's one remarkable thing. And to come back to your question, why we still have conventional. What we learned also by visiting frontrunner farms all around the world, which is called regenerative farming now, is that if you are going to do this, you have to make an investment in your soil. It will cost money. That's the big transition finance topic everybody's discussing now. How to finance the transition period, because you have to invest in your soil, maybe a little bit changing of machinery, cover cropping, etc. And it is possible that you make mistakes, or that the soil is not directly delivering what you expect from it, etc. So my question was to myself, how I am going to finance that? And that was also the starting point that I started studying natural capital. And I learned at that moment that if I'm going to regenerate my soils, automatically I'm going to build and deliver natural capital more than I was used to. And then carbon sequestration, nitrogen fixation, biodiversity in the ground, above the ground, fine dust capturing, all those things water holding capacity, water filtration, less erosion, etc., etc.
So that's what you call natural capital. It's
Yes.
all of these things.
Yes.
Yes.
And there was an article in the Financial Daily at that moment, and the topic was that natural capital is the biggest asset of humanity, but we are destroying it every day. And the whole economy is based on natural capital. And if a whole economy is based on natural capital, if humanity is based on natural capital, if natural capital is the biggest asset of humanity, then it has a value. And that was the starting point also, that, hey, if we are going to measure and monitor natural capital, hopefully I can sell it so I can finance my transition. And that was a second starting point about thinking different. And that has evolved in a lot of projects on this farm, which is Melanie running at this moment. And that's a project about carbon sequestration, water holding capacity, biodiversity, and the biggest one at this moment, nutrient density. So why are we still running a conventional part? To see the differences in water holding capacity, farm management, ecosystem services, natural capital, carbon sequestration, everything, just to see and learn.
So it's just a control plot to compare with the rest of your operation? Or you still have another reason why you continue conventional, because it's still in some cases more profitable?
No, that part of the farm is not owned by my family, and is owned by a very conservative older man, and he's 100% convinced that you need to plow in November, that you have to mulch your cover crops if you are doing that within a couple of weeks, etc. So really old school way of farming, and we manage that part of the farm for him, and he doesn't like to invest in soil health improvement, etc. So for us, it's a very interesting part within our whole farm management, to have the comparison between doing good and old school way of farming.
Okay, so if it was up to you, you would transition the whole of it to regenerative.
Yeah.
Okay. What does it mean to be regenerative for you?
For me, it's not only regenerative farming. I think it starts with a regenerative mindset, a regenerative life, a regenerative business, and regenerative farming. And for me, it's quite simple, that doing the things every day to make yourself, your business, your farm, or your soil a little bit better every day. So becoming super conscious about what you're doing and taking decisions, that asking yourself, how should nature do this? And we cannot let nature do its own thing, because then it's becoming a mess and we don't earn money anymore. But what should nature do? How should nature solve those things? And if you look in the dictionary, what is regenerative, that it is bringing back in the original balance. And when a company is in balance, or when you are in balance as a human being, and your gut is in balance, and the soil is in balance, then everything is flowing in the right way. So it's the continuous strive to restore balance and harmony in the way nature should have organized it. Because becoming a regenerative farmer is way, way, way more difficult than just conventional farming. Because you're starting to work with nature, and you have to understand biology, and you have to understand a soil. And for your imagination, if we only have knowledge about 30% what's happening in the soil, then it's a very interesting challenge. It's not a challenge, way to farm, and you really have to understand and feel and sense what's happening in the soil. So it's really Champions League farming, in the transition period. And when you're through the transition period, then things are getting easier every year. And in our farming system, because we have an arable farming system, and we also have quite intensive crops which are growing in the ground, like onions, potatoes, carrots, red beets, then it's even more complicated because you're still busy in the soil and disturbing the fungal mycelium structures, etc., and the holes of the worms in the top layer. If you compare that with the mowable crops, so the crops which are growing above the ground, that's easier to develop. It goes faster also.
Because you don't have that problem that you're forced to disturb the ground.
Yes.
Yeah, and so how can you be regenerative for those kind of crops? Because you're forced to go into the ground. Is there a way you can still improve your soil structure and health with these kind of crops?
Yeah, you have to. Yeah, it's like walking on the stairs. You go, let's say, in combination. Plants are building soil. Let's put it that thing. So we are not building the soil. The plants are building the soil. So by going for a system with the goal to have, let's say, 365 days green on your soils, and your cash crop is only there for, let's say, 4 or 5 months. That means that there are still 5, 6, 7 months to have a rest cover crop, multi-species, 20 species, for example, to build soil. So you are building soil. Let's imagine that you make 7 steps forward, and then you have 1 year with a mowable crop. So it's positive, 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 positive. The year after that, you have a more intensive crop, and then you get a couple of steps back. So the goal is to get less steps back than you're building, because then net you are still building soil. But it's going slower.
But it's going in the right direction.
Yes.
You're going up the stairs.
Yes, we're going up the stairs, yes. But it is a little bit to imagine it.
Right. I often hear that a healthy soil means healthy crop, means healthy people. What about a healthy farmer? Do you feel like your transition process has also helped you in your own personal physical and mental well-being?
If you succeed, it's super satisfying. But we have had, especially in the beginning, because we changed too many things in 1 year, and we invested a lot of money in different kinds of machinery, etc. So we have had some dark years. But when you're through that, you see the light at the tunnel again, and then it's bringing you so much happiness. And just to see the happiness of the plants, you see more worms, you see more bigger earth animals. If you watch through the microscope, you see more fungi, more bacteria, more protozoa, and all those things. So you are really building life, and that's also, it's not directly, let's say, a form of income, but bringing back nature on the balance sheet is one of my mantras. So by building nature, that's super satisfying. And what you also can see is risk-wise that in extreme years, like we are experiencing the last years, with drought or heavy rainfalls or long rainfalls, the difference between regenerative soils and conventional soils is huge. For example, 2 years ago we had 73 millimeters of rain on one day, and behind where we're sitting now there was a plot which is in transition for 7-8 years now, and we had rented the plot 2 kilometers further on the road also for potatoes, same variety, planted one day after each other. And the beautiful thing is that we had a higher yield on the regenerative crop, better quality on the regenerative plot. But the most important thing, the quality was better, and we were able to harvest that field after 48 hours. And on that plot with bad soil quality, we were still digging holes after 1.5 weeks, for example. And we lost 1.5, 1.8 hectares of yield. So bottom line, we were earning money on that regenerative plot, and we were losing money on that conventional plot. So it's also a rest. It gives you rest. So if it's a heavy rainfall, then I can wake up in the morning and watch around. Hey, no water on my fields, which is making me super happy. The plants are happier. The system is getting more in balance, so the battery is getting filled more, so things are getting, the growing process is going more in a right flow and automatically.
And economically speaking, how is the economy of the farm doing compared to before? Do you see an improvement there? Well, you mentioned that it was very difficult at the start. It was an investment. There was some dark years, but yeah.
Yeah, we have been through the, let's say, the traditional, what is it, the J curve?
Mm-hmm.
What is the J curve?
Yeah.
So we made a lot of investments. We made mistakes. We didn't have all the right knowledge. We didn't have the experience. So in the first years we had, let's say, lower yields and high expenditure of the things we were changing. But you have to tweak that. So don't make all the steps in you cannot win a marathon or the Champions League final in 1 year. So there are a few things you have to do first. That's change your mindset and get a lot of knowledge, and then change your whole management step by step, and not doing everything through each other in the first years.
Do you feel like you went too far, too fast?
Yes.
What would you do different if you had to do it again?
Start slowly. At this moment you have the possibility to visit many farmers which are already having the experience. That's one thing, and that was not able in my time. But just start with, let's say, go from tilling to shallow tilling, and not go from tilling to no-till. Way too big step. Start slowly with cover cropping. Don't do all your area of acreage in 1 year. Step by step by step. That you can learn, that you can experience. We changed our whole farm equipment to a CTF system because soil compaction was our problem. So we changed our whole farming system into tram lines. So we rebuilt all the tractors to 3.15 meters wide, so that all our plants were growing in unridden soil. But it was a huge investment. It was an investment from 1.6 million. And don't do that again.
Okay, yeah, I see. But so the fact that you had this J curve, that you had a decrease in yields and revenue the first year or so, it's not necessarily a given that it's going to happen to farmers who transition. It's just that back in those days, you didn't have the resources and the knowledge, and you made certain mistakes. But for a farmer transitioning today, if they have the right resource, the right help, the right information, they can avoid that J curve. They can.
Yes. Nowadays, it's way, because you have agronomists at the moment who can guide you. There are a lot of events where you can go through. There are study clubs where you can go through. It's becoming a little bit more mainstream. So introducing a regenerative system step by step, that's more mainstream now.
Mm-hmm. And is there, are there sometimes farmers who come to you for help or for advice on their transition?
Yes. We also a little bit, because there's always been an open culture in farming, that everything will be shared, etc. And farmers who have the right mindset, we are helping at the moment. And if you are just knocking on the door because I want to earn more money, that's not the right approach. So you have to make the change between your ears first in your head. Hey, I want to start changing my system. Because there is a pressure from outside, from, let's say, the old school world, let's say the whole delivery world, so all the companies who wants to sell something to a farm. And in regenerative farming, you do less, and you need less if you're doing it right. So it's not a super interesting business model for the whole supplying industry around the farmers. And if you look at the graph of the the growth of the supplying industry for farmers to the billions and billions and billions turnover, it's a very steep graph. And if you see the reduction of organic material in soil, it's the same steep graph, but then downside. So that means there is a huge business model on just supplying all the farmers. And that's also the reason why all the risk is at the farm and they are making the most money of it. So there is also, let's say, an, an, an air of fear around it that, yeah, people are warning you, you must be sure. So the psychological part of going through the transition is super strong. You must be super strong between your ears. And therefore I always say, change your mindset first. And what we are a little bit afraid of at this moment is that there are many companies in the food sector who want to do something with regenerative, but I'm really challenging them to also change their whole system to become regenerative and not doing one or two projects and then claim, hey, I'm regenerative.
Okay, let's take just a really short break from this awesome conversation because I need to tell you about the partner of this podcast, Soil Capital. Soil Capital is a company that's promoting the transition to regenerative agriculture by financially rewarding farmers who improve the health of their soils. They're a really cool company. I personally love what they're doing, and I'm very proud to be partnering with them for my podcast. What about the organic regenerative part of your operation? Can you tell me something about
our goal
how
is
that's
to,
going?
because in our vision, it's organic is without chemicals. So no fertilizer, chemical fertilizer, and no synthetic spraying of chemicals. But that for us doesn't mean that you're building soil, because you can still plow, you can still do nothing on biodiversity, and now all those things which are conventional, you can farm conventional on an organic way. Let's put it.
So I had this conversation a few times on the podcast, so I'm starting to sort of understand the difference. So if I understand correctly, in just simple terms, organic, you stopped using all chemical products, but you can still be very intensive in tilling the soil and things like that, which could be very bad for soil in general. But in regenerative agriculture, you can still use a certain amount of chemicals to help you in certain places, but you're really focusing on building soil health. So those two are slightly different.
Yeah. So our approach is that building soil health first, step by step by step by step by step. Yeah, you are integrating more nature every year in your farming system, and you don't want to destroy nature. So the use of, let's say, the chemical inputs are going down every year. When you are building a very strong soil, then the soil become resilient for diseases, etc. Your plants become resilient, and then you become organic automatically. So we have always had the vision, and I still have, build soil health first, reduce your chemical inputs, make sure your natural capital is growing, and then on a certain point, the whole system can do it on its own.
Okay.
But yeah, we still have, let's say, the more intensive crop like the onions and the potatoes, and yeah, we still have problems there with fungal diseases, and yeah, it's not under control yet. And we have to earn money also. And even in this year, when the 100% organic farmers, they have real difficulties with getting, let's say, a crop which can be sold. Because the potatoes are sick at the moment already. The onions are already sick. So that's really a hard time. So it's another thing is that's also the market development. We don't have the privilege in the Netherlands that there is a big demand for organic produce yet. So the market is still 4%, between 4 or 5%, and there are organic farmers who are selling their products at this moment on the conventional market because there is not enough demand for their, let's say, onions or. So that's a little bit a local situation in the Netherlands. I think Germany and Belgium and France is better for the organic market also.
Possibly, I'm not
No, I'm
in the
also
best position to know.
But,
Yeah, okay.
but yeah, let's see. Let's see how things are. If regulations are going to increase like last year's, yeah, it's impossible to use chemicals anymore. So
Yeah.
let's see how things are evolving. That.
But the core idea is that you want to build soil health and you want to build the resilience of your system first, and then that helps you to slowly decrease the amount of chemical inputs to the point where maybe you can stop altogether.
Yeah.
And you've already done that on parts of your operation here successfully.
Yeah.
Without any yield penalty.
Without a yield penalty, and I have to admit also that it all are mowable crops, so grains and beans and soybeans, that so all above the ground crops.
What about them? Sorry.
Those crops are harvested above the ground,
Mm-hmm.
and that's let's say in soybeans. And
oh right, okay. So only crops above ground
Yes.
you've managed to go
Yeah.
full organic and regenerative, but it's much harder when the crops are in the ground. Okay, I understand. I'd love to focus the conversation a little bit more specifically on the Tomasu brand. That will allow us to talk even more about soil health and about how that impacts the quality of the food you produce. And maybe you could just give us a little bit of background about Tomasu, the company, how it started, and what it is. What do you do?
Within Tomasu, we make soy sauce. And how did we came to that point of making soy sauce? That was, let's say, 2 journeys of frustration. And I was on a journey in the potatoes, getting specialty potatoes for children on the plates in the retail, and it was good, but not growing as fast as we wanted to. And we were having discussions. How can we solve it? How can we increase the profitability of the farm? And I was having a dinner with a friend of mine, and he said, "Yeah, what are your most profitable crops? Profitable crops?" And I said, "Yeah, that's onions, that's carrots, potatoes." And the last one, we are losing money on the grains, the winter wheat, for example, and the legumes are break even. He said, "Yeah. Let's focus on the worst crops on your farm, because that's way more easy to increase your margin with 10 or 15 or 20%. I didn't saw it that way, but interesting. And I was discussing with my team, and maybe a good opportunity. And one of the guys from the team said, "Yeah, but people are not eating a potato every day anymore. But most people are eating a piece of bread every day. Oh, let's focus on that market." It was also in relation with my friend who said you have to focus a little bit more on the lowest profitable crops. So we started to grow specialty grains with good results. And I went to a miller, fully enthusiastic, to sell my grains. And it was on the west part of the Netherlands, near the sea. And I had an appointment with him, and I was telling super enthusiastic which grains I had and how much I had and which quality, etc. And interesting. Yeah. But we are delivering the same flour with the same conditions 52 weeks a year. So it's quite difficult for a baker to change his baking system with the amount of water and salt and the heat in the oven. So he said, "Interesting, but I'm not going to give it a try. That maybe later, but at this moment I don't see any profitability in it." Okay. So I went home disappointed. And in Rotterdam, there was a baker. Quite a big bakery, 135 employees. and he was selling bread to the retail also. And at a certain moment, he was forced in the food system to make, let's say, a half high white bread for 42 cents, for example. And he needed to bake that in 2.5 hours. And if it was not sold within 24 hours, he has to send a credit note also to the reseller, which was also, let's say, a frustrated system. So two people in a frustrated system, and that baker was watching a documentary on America's discovery about superfine food producers in the US. And there was a guy who was making soy sauce. And what he saw was that making soy sauce is like, say, a fermentation process like making sourdough bread, but then sourdough is faster, and using almost the same ingredients as baking bread. And it really hit him in his heart. And the next day, he booked a flight to New York, rented a car, drove to Kentucky, Louisville, ring on the bell of that company, and he said to the person who opened the door, "Yeah, I saw you yesterday on television, and what you are doing here, I want to do it in Europe." And a little bit surprised person looked at him. "Yeah, I have to go to the boss and see what's happening." And then Matt Jamie came to the door, and Thomas said, "Yeah, I'm Thomas from the Netherlands, and what you are doing, super enthusiastic about it." And then he had to think 1 or 2 seconds, and then he said, "Yeah, welcome in Kentucky." And Thomas was there, and he learned how to make soy sauce. And coming back, they started together with Pete, a little bit in small scale, tweaking what to do to make soy sauce. And then they came to the point that they needed ingredients from a farm, healthy soil, the whole concept. And he was already buying flour from that miller in the west of the Netherlands. He went over there, did his whole story, what he want, and the miller said, that's way too complicated. Farmers want to have commoditized products, lowest cost price, highest yield. Yeah, but he said, I'm asking for quality, not for yield. Special products, and that's impossible. They walked back to the car, and then the miller remembered 6 or 7 weeks ago, there was a farmer here. He was as crazy as you are. Maybe you have to meet each other. On the way back, he called me. The day after, he was on the farm. After lunch, we had a conversation for 5-6 hours together with Pete, his right hand. And at the end of the day, we said, "Yeah, shall we try to make soy sauce together?" Because I was already growing soybeans for soy milk at that moment, but it was not super profitable yet. And that was the starting point of two persons coming together, and which is a soy sauce brewery at this moment, which is making soy sauce on the traditional Japanese way. So where fermentation is the red line in the whole process and company, where time is our ingredient, to give the fermentation process full space to get mature within, let's say, 24, 26, 28 months. And we are making soy sauce that's quite unique in old whiskey barrels. And there are not so many people who are doing that worldwide.
No, that's a very uncommon. You wouldn't imagine soy sauce being made in the Netherlands. So I was very intrigued about that.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful success story as well.
Yeah.
I read on the website of Tomasu a quote from you saying, "When you pursue great flavor, you also pursue great soil health. It might sound obvious, and it is."
Yeah. The concept is super simple. Healthy soil, gives a environment for plants to grow on a very healthy way so that they become healthy. Then they give you a yield. So in this way, the soybeans or the wheat kernels. And we have also learned in the last 10 years that if you do this in this way, that you also get healthy products. And by healthy, I mean the nutrient density is becoming higher if you follow this process. And then there is a beautiful research in the US with a famous chef called Dan Barber from Blue Hill Restaurant in New York. And together with MIT University, he has done a lot of research that there is also a correlation between health, nutrient density, and taste. So by time and by regenerating your soils, you can deliver health. And that health is going to bring taste on the plates. And if you put that in a whole fermentation process, because fermentation is the heart of life, it starts with fermentation on the fields, with fermenting the cover crop. Then in our farm brewery, we are fermenting compost teas, vermicompost, biofertilizers. So that's again a fermentation process to feed the plants. We ferment the plants of the soybeans and the wheat in the barrels. And in our gut, there's also a fermentation process. So if you look at that cycle, then fermentation is the heart of life.
Mm.
So in the vertical supply chain, from farm field till the end consumer, it's all about fermentation.
Right. And you said the cover crops are fermented. What do you mean by that?
You mulch the cover crop.
Yeah.
And we do that in spring, and we do a very fast fermentation process. So we make our own inoculant with lactobacillus bacteria. We spray that during mulching on the cover crops, and then we leave the cover crop mulched on top of the soil in combination with a little bit of rainfall and the energy from the sun. It's going to ferment super fast, and then all the nutrients within the cover crop are available for the plants.
Okay, so that all of that happens on the field. You don't take it out, you just leave it there, but you manage to find this process.
Yeah.
Okay. And that fermentation of the cover crops makes the nutrients available much quicker for the plants coming after.
Yeah.
Right.
And then don't forget the animal part, because we don't have animals on this farm because we are managing quite high farmland prices over here. But the fermentation of, let's say, grass or straw or whatever you want to name it in cows and animals, etc., is also a super important part.
Mm-hmm.
So at this moment, we still buy solid organic manure from really regenerative dairy farms. To spread that on the fields. So that's also a part to feed the plants in the soil. And don't forget composting. So green compost is also a way of fermentation, of composting, which we use. So getting a real craftsman in composting and fermentation is super important in the whole regenerative way of thinking in farming.
Mm. How do you make compost here on the farm?
We have on the back of this farm, we have small piles where we use leaves, organic manure, straw, wood chips, etc. And we have a compost mulcher, and where we make our own compost.
Mm-hmm.
And then we make the compost stronger by spreading a little bit biofertilizer over it, or compost tea, that the whole inoculation of the fungi part goes faster. And for our compost teas and compost extracts, we use Johnson Sioux compost. Mm-hmm. And we make that in small batches on the farm.
Okay.
And the vermicompost we are buying.
Right. So when you say soil health, so the soil health then makes a healthy product, and the healthy product has more taste as well. What do we mean by soil health? How do you measure or quantify what you believe to be a healthy soil?
Yeah. Um, a healthy soil is you got a golden triangle, and that's one point. It's organic matter, carbon, which is super important part. Carbon is yeah, let's say the holder of everything. Then another angle, that's nutrients. So you must have nutrients. And another one is soil biology. And those three things need to interact with each other, and they are building soil health in, let's say, the physical way. So that you can measure that in all technical things. We are gonna don't make a deep dive on it. So it's the natural component, the physical component, and the chemical component, which need to work together. And that was one of the mistakes we make in the beginning, that we were only focusing, oh, you have too less organic matter. So we were, let's say, leave the straw on the fields. But the straw didn't digest because we didn't have soil biology. So after 2 years, nothing happened. So all those three components need to work together. And then we can make it three-dimensional also if we put the energy part on it. So you have to have, let's say, an energy, and that can be universal energy, energy from the sun, doesn't matter. You have to harvest energy to get those three things working together. And you have to measure that, and that's called the soil health index nowadays.
Yeah.
And those...
Soil health index.
Yes.
Okay, so there's like now a sort of an index that is recognized by the community as at large. Yes. Okay.
It's an index which is, it can be super extensified, but it's getting a little bit more simplified in the last years. Yeah, to make a few different analyses to calculate the soil health index.
I'm curious about the energy part you just mentioned. That's something kind of new for me. Like, could you give us a concrete example of that on your farm?
There's an abundant amount of energy available for everybody. And it's coming from the sun, and it's coming from the earth, from the universe and the earth. But there are less and higher energetic fields. And we call that eco-intention. You can give also energy to fields. That's the green finger feeling, the groene vingers.
Okay.
Green fingers, I don't know, groene vingers in Dutch.
Yeah. Okay.
So giving that love to the fields. And that's symbolized in a very simple way. I don't know if you've seen that YouTube movie, when there was two classes of children in the age of 6 till 8 years old. And they both had their classroom on the south part of the school, and they both get 10 tomato plants. Same soil, same seeding dates, all conditions the same amount of water. And let's say the left class was asked to say really bad things to the plants every day for a certain period. And the right class was asked to say beautiful words to the tomato plants, give love to them, etc., etc. After 2.5 weeks, the tomato plants in the left classroom died. In the right classroom, they were flowering, flourishing, super happy, super green, and giving tomatoes.
That's incredible. I have not seen that film. You'll have to send me the link, and maybe I can put it in the description of the podcast.
And that's it.
That's incredible. I saw these videos with rice. They were doing that with rice, and I always wondered if it was fake. I always wanted to try it myself, but it's amazing. It means that there's a layer of energy that we don't really fully measure or understand yet, but that has a real impact on life around us.
And that's the same. Everything is frequencies.
Mm-hmm.
And there are wineries at this moment, and it's let's say it's just a hobbymatic way of, let's say, world I'm exploring at this moment. But there are wineries in France at this moment, and they are playing music in their wineries and also in their barrel storages, and it is working. And if you have, say, Henk Kieft is one of the scientists of Wageningen University. He has written a whole book about quantum farming at this moment, which is super exciting, and in my point of view, will be a big part of regenerative farming in the future.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, but it is still
Yeah,
early stage.
yeah. Is that something you've experimented with the for example, the soybeans or the barrel where you ferment the soy sauce to play classical music in there?
We always play music when we are stirring the barrels, and that's every week. But yes, in the beginning we are used to have the weekly meetings with the barrels. Within the barrels, because everything was in the same location. We have a different office and visitor center now, and my gut feeling said that we have to have, let's say, conversations and meetings also with the barrels. That's
And that extra care, that extra sort of connection with the product gives it that extra something that really does make a difference for the consumer at the end, like that taste, the sauce.
I don't know.
Well,
it's all subjective, all those things. So we also have let's say, the mantra that we don't claim things. We only share things, and you have to decide on your own.
Yeah.
So this is very, very early stage.
But it's very interesting.
Yeah.
Very curious to see more research and development in that field, and I also have to contact that researcher that you mentioned from Wageningen University, and maybe dig deeper into this topic with him. That would be interesting.
We have a few trials on the farm at this moment related to energy or eco intention.
Going back to soil health, do you measure your soil health? How do you measure it, and how often?
It's all about additionality. And you cannot build a healthy soil in 1 year. So we aim to do a very extensive soil examination every 4 years. And why every 4 years? Because that's also a average crop rotation. So growing, for example, potatoes every 4 years. So that then there is a rhythm to do the. It can also be 1 in the 5 years. That's when we really deep digging a hole and do all the kinds of different examinations. On a yearly base, we do a lot of plant sample analysis. We have a small lab on this farm to measure the nutrients in the plants. And we analyze the product also in nutrients, also in our small lab. And that's if we can see on a weekly or bi-weekly basis how the nutrients are developing in our plants, where there is a deficiency of, let's say, a small micronutrient, that we can add that on the short term. And in the end of the year, we do then the analysis of all the crops by a photometer, and to measure all the nutrients which are available in the periodic diagram, let's say the chemistry diagram. We measure all those nutrients, and hopefully we can see an increase in the development.
Right. So you're doing all of that here on a weekly basis. So you really have this very precise view on how the nutrient density of your crop is evolving over time.
We do it
bi-weekly. Okay, bi-weekly. But that's still very, very often. And so you must be gathering a lot of amazing data on how different practices or different circumstances affect the nutrient density of your
but you have to realize also that the growing season is quite short.
Mm-hmm.
So there are crops which are only on the field for 90 till 120 days, so 4 months.
Mm-hmm.
And you are only measuring it, let's say, before they get into maturity stage. So they are babies, and then they are, let's say, in the first 5 or 6 weeks, you don't have to measure anything. So it's really in the critical phase before they start really multiplying and setting their tubers or filling their pots of the soybeans.
Okay, and over time, over the years, have you been able to measure an improvement in in nutrient density?
Yeah. And we do. My wife does that with her foundation, Soil Heroes Foundation. At the moment, we have a very scientific-based research program running on our farm, and that's also why we have the conventional part, that we are comparing regenerative practices with conventional practices and what the differences are in nutrient density. So, the Dr. Daphne Miller from the States, she has written the book Pharmacology, so ecology and pharma, and she said, yeah, farmers can be the pharmacists of the future, and we are a little bit ahead of the crowd, let's put it that way, but it takes time to get the right evidence that hopefully in the future regenerative farmers are able to sell health.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't buy a broccoli at this moment, but then you buy a broccoli with all the right nutrients in it, that it's good for your health, and hopefully it's also, let's say, a counterbalance for the whole medicine world, which is giving all kinds of substitutes, magnesium, etc., to consumers. No, just buy a healthy broccoli.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe you have to buy more for it, but yeah, compared to the rising cost of our health insurance, etc., I see that it will be in balance in the future.
Yeah. Isn't it a very similar sort of mindset shift than the farming one, when you go from fighting life with chemicals artificially to actually understand how to help life thrive on your farm, because then it helps you, and we start doing the same thing with human health as well. Understand how like fighting life with chemicals is sometimes not so efficient, although I mean medicine has done wonders, and you know, and in many cases is still amazing, but going from the source, going back to the source, what we eat.
100%, 100%. And if you see, let's say, a lot of people are eating magnesium tablets, pills.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go to, let's say, degraded soils, most of the time they have a deficiency in magnesium. So all the problems in the guts and the human beings, of the systems of the human beings, most of the times they are similar to what's happening in soils. There's a one-on-one correlation. So solving the problem in soils is solving the problem in humanity.
It's put that way, it seems obvious, but it's still a very unconventional idea.
Yeah, because we have created a food system which is based on which has developed in a whole processed way of food supply with the lowest cost price possible. So yeah, they extract all the good things out of it and sell it to different markets, etc. That we have food without the soul anymore. The heart is not in our food anymore. We have to bring that back.
I have just a really small favor to ask. If you're enjoying this conversation and would like to support my work and this podcast, you can do that in just 5 seconds. Wherever you're listening to this podcast right now, Spotify, Apple Music, or maybe somewhere else, just click on the Deep Seed page and hit the follow button. If you want to go just one extra step, you can also leave me a 5-star review. It helps the podcast more than you know, and I really, really appreciate it. So thank you so much in advance. And so we've just made a connection between soil health and the health of the products that you're growing in that soil, and then onto taste. So how do you sort of observe changes in tastes in the products related to this nutrient density and to the soil health that you're measuring?
Yeah. What you see now is that top chefs, they are really busy with taste, because let's say in the Michelin star restaurants, it's all about taste and experience. Um, so they are really busy with taste. And what we see also within Tommaso, if we promote this story in high-end chefs, it's an inspiration for the layers below that for cooking on a very healthy way with local food, etc. But it's up to the consumers and the people who go to the restaurants to give a judgment about it. We're not going to do that, but there is a very confident trend at this moment that there is a demand and experience around healthy and local food. But is it scientifically based? I don't know.
It's hard to quantify taste, right? It's a
Yes,
very
because
personal
it's
human
100%
experience thing.
personal.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can relate it to the demand for those healthy, tasteful products. Yeah, selling real taste is super complicated and difficult. So we have to focus to become takumi. That's a Japanese word for craftsmanship. So you have to become a real takumi or craftsman in making tasteful, healthy food. And then, as a result of that, you have a growing community and clients who are going to reward you for the work you are doing as a craftsmanship. And that's a little bit top-down development, which is an inspiration for, let's say, a bigger group in society. But is it scientifically based? No. That because you can like this and I can like that. Maybe it's both the same health. But what we really see is that healthy and tasteful food is a real connector. For example, when people go to Italy or whatever, eat local food on their holidays, etc., most of the time when they went back, what are they going to tell? We had beautiful weather and the food was delicious. So food is a really connector. And the deepest layer of the work we are doing is restoring relationships. So relationships from a farmer with a consumer, from consumers with a farmer, from farmer with nature, from consumer with nature, from nature with, and vice versa, so that we can build a whole mycelium of relationships, all based on nature. We are not above nature. Nature is way more intelligent than AI or the whole humanity on this world. And we have to be humble to that and learn from it and observe. Because if the world is going to shake and all the human beings are falling off the Mother Earth, nature is continuing. And we as humanity, we are losing the game.
What you're saying here is like it's so powerful. I can feel it vibrate within me. There's a phrase I also highlighted from a conversation you had with Koen and Sayan on his podcast recently that I wrote down. And it was, the system is like a big ship that is not steerable and it's going to crash into the wall at high speed. This crisis needs to get much worse before things can change for the better.
Yeah.
And that's a phrase that really struck me deep as well. And I was wondering if you could tell us what you mean by that.
Yeah, it's I can tell it's quite simple. For many years I had the ambition to change the system. The big system, the food system, the agro-industry system. But forget it. You're not going to change that. So I've changed that whole mindset by giving energy to change, let's say, the dark side of this whole system. To change a little bit more in, hey, what's your own power? What are you available to do? And create the space you want to have it as an example for the future, and focus fully on that. And that's what I mean. It's okay if the system don't want to change. It's going to change automatically because it's not it's not resilient for the future. Um, if you go to, let's say, the financial system or the economy, we can talk hours about it. I leave it over there. We can have discussions about it.
Mm.
Building a new system. What is money? Why do we have a two-sided balance sheet with interest and dividend? Why don't we have a one-sided balance sheet when there's only real thing like the exchange bank in 1609, when there is always 1 kilogram of silver and it's this amount of money against it, and there's always one-on-one, so there's never debt in the whole system. So we can talk about hours about that, but for us, creating a system where we are in control from farm till consumer, with nature, and show the world that it is possible to be happy, healthy, and profitable. That's the goal, and then it's up to the responsibility of, let's say, the other world, what they are going to do with it. That's not my
I
responsibility.
see. Yeah, I feel very much the same, and I've been feeling that way for a long time. And when you start really learning about the world we live in, and the environment, the loss of biodiversity, the carbon emissions, all of these problems, it's hard not to get very depressed, right? Because it appears kind of obvious at some point that yes, it is a big ship, that we have the solutions, but we're not using them. So like you said, it's not steerable. It's too big. It's too hard to steer. And I gained back kind of hope, I guess, by imagining that instead of steering the ship away from the iceberg or the wall, we're building a lot of lifeboats.
Yeah.
And people like yourself, pioneer farmers, coming up with these new solutions, and leading by example. And all of these innovators and all of these people who are trying to find solutions are like building all of these lifeboats for humanity to get onto, and to maybe sort of, try and thrive in some way in the future.
And the beautiful thing is that all pioneering regenerative farmers all around the world, they are all friends of each other. And you interviewed Benedict Beuzel, for example. From the first beginning, we were talking the same language. And I have that same energy with guys from the UK, from Australia, from the US. It doesn't matter. We have the same. Yeah, we found each other in the desert, and then you speak the same language, and that's also by conversations with chefs about a soy sauce, which has a great taste profile. If you speak the same language and the same energy, things are restoring relationship wise, and that's part that's so beautiful. That and if we help each other to earn also a little bit of money, and then it's just money is just a part of it.
Are you part of the ERA group?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
the founding you're one of the founding farmers of the movement. We discussed this in the previous episode with Anne, and I find it super exciting, super inspiring that, as you said, so many farmers from different parts of Europe here, with very different conditions, different backgrounds, different cultures, got together and were speaking the same language. That tells you that there's something
and also
right
the respect for each other. Let's say compared to Anne, which is operating the last farm at Bodemzicht, was a small farm, super romantic compared to my farm, which is it's a real big business, but we have deep respect for each other, and that's super beautiful. And I learn from her, she learns from me.
That word respect, it brings back a memory, because we met before in Brussels a few months ago. We had a drink together after the RFSI conference with Benedict Beuzel also and Nikki. And I remember very clearly you saying that farmers are not getting respected anywhere near enough. Is that something you feel very strongly? Lack of respect for farmers and the work they do?
100%. It's touching my heart at the moment. It's now that's really one thing that restoring the relationship between consumers and Mother Earth is essential. That for our health, for our natural capital, to solve the big problems in the world, etc. Respect for Mother Earth, not for only us farmers, because we are only stewardships in a certain period of time. But Mother Earth is here already for thousands and thousands and years, and we have to respect her. And that's a super, yeah. I think that's the most important thing. That.
But when you say that you feel like farmers are not getting respected, how does that happen in your daily life? Like, or how do you feel that? How do you see that? Is it
in our daily life it's because we have created a fully anonymous food system. That food, let's say tomatoes, don't have a brand. It's just tomatoes. Potatoes, it's just potatoes. It's not the potatoes of farmer Jeroen.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you have the potatoes of farmer Jeroen, it's already a different dimension. And so we have created a fully commoditized, anonymous food chain where everything is processed on the cheapest way in a super efficient retail system. That's it.
And have you managed to sort of reconnect more with the consumer by building a local,
Yeah.
supply chain? You mentioned that earlier.
100%. But logistics is a big problem in that. We started with the potato, let's say direct delivery to the city because we live near Rotterdam, 12 kilometers near Rotterdam, a huge community with possible potential consumers. But the logistics to bring your products in the city, it's a real challenge. Because you have, let's say, 10 orders, you fill your van, bring it to the city. For example, we had also the tourist ships was one of our customers, and we're eating quite a big amount of people every week. And then you deliver your potatoes, and super interesting. And then on the way back, you get an invitation to do another tour with 150 people on this tourist boat in the harbor of Rotterdam. Yeah, can you bring some extra potatoes? Because I didn't. Of course, you're my client. So then you have to drive back with an empty van with a less amount of potatoes, bring it into the city, drive back, big traffic jam, etc. So it takes 1.5 hours, 2 hours to come back, and then you're losing money. So the logistics of bringing and processing the food to the consumer in a short supply chain, it's really challenging. In the Netherlands, and I think in other countries it's a little bit more used to reward the farmers for the things they do, but the local market is still small.
And you do farm tours and events like that at the farm that sort of help also people see what you do and you connect with these people?
Yeah, but we are struggling because it's taking a lot of time. And we are really searching for a model. We don't have a farm shop at the moment. Within Tomasso, it's way more easy because it's exit through the gift shop, and you can buy Tomasso bottles, etc., salt and chili paste, all those things, and then we have a reward for the time we are investing. But on our farm, you cannot buy 5 kilograms of potatoes. So we are really struggling how to because we have requests almost every week. But you have the coffee, tea, toilet, everything. You're busy with it. We're really struggling how to make that, let's say, also a profitable part of the farm.
Okay. What do you love the most about being a farmer?
The freedom. Freedom. I'm free to do whatever nature and the crops are asking every day, but I don't have to go into an office. If I want to start at 6 o'clock, I start at 6 o'clock, and if I start at 9 o'clock, I start at 9 o'clock. So it's the freedom. It's working with nature. It's seeing that nature is doing well with the things you are doing, the rewards you are getting, the compliments you are getting, and also the successes we are booking. It's regenerative farming and regenerative life. It's a holistic way, so all the things together make it beautiful.
I'm wondering also, how has your regenerative transition affected your relationships with the farming community locally? Because I guess you had some ties. You grew up here on the farm. You must know a lot of other farmers around. How have they responded to these changes you've made, and how has it affected your relationship with them?
There is a shift in, let's say, farmers who want to make the mind shift, and then it's an open communication, and farmers who don't want to change, who don't believe in this in the system yet. They are a little bit more like a closed approach. So it's okay. It's okay. We are doing things differently. Maybe I'm different. That's also the reason why we are making soy sauce at the moment, maybe. But yeah, let's say the worldwide community, it's easier than the very close community, the nearby community.
Yeah, I'm guessing also in a way, maybe it's certain relationships locally that haven't been thriving because you had very different visions, but at the same time you've met wonderful people from around the world who had a similar mentality, so you've maybe lost some friends but made some.
Our international community is growing every week, let's put it that way. And the real it's respect, let's put it that way.
If there's any farmers listening who are either early in the transition journey towards regenerative, or are still fully conventional but are open-minded and curious, and maybe that's the reason why they're listening to this podcast right now, what would be your recommendation?
My recommendation is visit as lot as possible pioneers around Europe, because around us they are further on the journey already than we are in the Netherlands, Germany, UK, parts of France and Belgium, Austria. Just visit those farmers, read and listen, read books, listen to podcasts, study the soil food web. You have to understand the soil food web. So it's getting knowledge, change your mindset, change your management. That are the steps you have to make.
How did you learn the soil food web? What kind of resource did you use to learn that?
We did the Elaine Ingham soil food web course.
Yes, Elaine Ingham. Where is she, in Canada?
In the UK, yeah. In the US and Canada.
In the US and Canada, yes. And she's a pioneer in that, and she has a course. And the course it's a course you can do online.
Yeah, it's online. It's a real investment, but and read books. Let's say one of the front runners, Gabe Brown. It's super simple what he tells you.
Yes.
And just see how that resonates.
I have just one last question that I ask at the end of every episode. I hope you read the questions in advance and you had time to prepare, because it's always hard to just think about it like that. But if you were organizing a dinner party and you could invite any 3 people from present time or from history, who would you invite, why, and what would you cook for them?
Yeah, I would organize 2 dinners to give a little bit different example. And one is with different generations. So my grandfather, my grandfather, my father, myself, and my son, who have all been farmers, and maybe my future grandchildren. So a real generation dinner. And then I would organize also a dinner because Mother Earth is female, and I strongly believe in the female power at this moment. And I would invite, let's say, my daughter, for example, an elder woman like Auntie Ivy, a conscious lady like Nikki. So a real women's circle to cook for. So it's 2 dinners, and with respect for everybody who I forgot to mention. But that's really how I would manage it, and I would make a dinner with at least one of my favorite dishes, and that is sliced red carrots cooked in soy sauce. And then make a lot of, let's say, plant-based dishes.
Plant-based is something important for you?
Yeah, I think so. If you want to grow your consciousness, then things like coffee, red meat, are not good for your consciousness.
Okay.
That's I don't say that we are consuming too much meat at the moment worldwide.
No.
And also bad meat.
But do you still consume meat or animal products? Yes.
But if I know for 100% certain that cow, I only eat cows, for example, have had a marvelous life, and they have received a lot of love, and that they were not forced to grow in a certain time, etc. But yes, a beautiful life in a beautiful grass-fed area from the farmer I know. That's the meat I want to eat still. But
so you haven't integrated any animals on your farm, have you?
Billions of animals. Yes. We have integrated, but they are all living in the soil. But above ground, we don't have chickens, pigs, or cows.
No, and that's not something that you're sort of thinking about. No.
The beautiful thing of becoming an arable farmer is that you have, let's say, a free Sunday, and there we have you need to give it attention every day.
Okay, yeah. So it's a personal lifestyle decision also. Yeah. Okay. Well, Jeroen, this has been an amazing conversation. I really, really enjoyed it. I loved it.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you so much for giving me the time, for welcoming me here.
Yeah.
We are blessed with more rain. So if you're just listening to this in audio, there's also a video version. We're sitting here in a nice little patio, and we just have a cover here so the rain doesn't fall on us, but it's been raining around. You can't see this, but both cameras filming us right now, we've taped some umbrellas on top of them to protect them from the rain, and it's worked out pretty well, I think. So maybe that's an explanation of why you hear this sound in the background, and maybe some sounds from the road. We heard some birds earlier as well, so that's all part of the experience.
The experience, right? It was a beautiful experience. Thank you for that. Thank you for having me, and it was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.